Legislation giving New Zealand spy agencies an explicit mandate to spy on New Zealanders and bringing the two intelligence agencies into one regime, of course the SAS and the GCSB, has been introduced to Parliament. A review earlier this year determined the two agencies should be operating under the same legislation and the same rules. The New Zealand Intelligence and Security Bill will have its first reading in Parliament on Thursday. The Prime Minister John Key revealed the contents of the new bill at his post-cabinet briefing today.
A new single act to cover the agencies, replacing the 4 separate acts which currently exist. A new warranting framework for intelligence collection. This includes a new triple lock system which will apply to any warrant involving a New Zealander. It means the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Security Warrants will have to approve any such warrant, which will then be subject to a review by the Inspector General. The bill also proposes more cooperation between the New Zealand SIS and GCSB.
The Minister responsible for the agencies, Chris Finlayson, says any warrant to spy on a New Zealander would have to be necessary and proportionate and subject to high scrutiny.
The GCSB has always been able to target New Zealanders for its cyber assurance and its assistance functions. Replacing Section 14 with the new triple lock protection for New Zealanders is both more coherent and a more robust safeguard for New Zealanders.
Chris Finlayson, our political editor Jane Patterson, was at the briefing today and joins us now from our parliamentary office. Hi Jane, all bets are off then. The GCSB will now be free to spy on New Zealanders.
That's right, John, and of course this has been one of the more controversial aspects of the law reform as this whole process has gone through. The review carried out by Michael Cullen and Patsy Reddy found that the GCSB was in some ways hindered by this inability in some cases to spy on New Zealanders, and they used the example of people being lost at sea and they couldn't use electronic communications to track those people down or help them. So now GCSB and SIS will have the same powers to carry out surveillance with the oversight, as Mr Key alluded to, of the triple lock. So it has to go through the Attorney General, it has to go through the Commissioner of Intelligence Warrants, and the Inspector General of Security and Intelligence will also review each of those Tier 1 warrants, so the highest level of warrant. And it also has to be in the interests of national security, and that's defined in the bill, and I think this is where a lot of the political wrangling is going to come down to in terms of that definition, which is very broad at the moment. The government has noted that it has been criticised as being too broad, and it has actually presented an alternative to that definition if the bill is not going to get through with good political support with the existing definition.
So spying will take place. There will also be information sharing, allowing other agencies to access personal information. So sharing amongst agencies. What's happening in that area and what are the safeguards there?
Well, actually, at the moment, the two spy agencies pretty much have what's been described as open slather to New Zealanders' personal information. They can go to banks, they can go to government departments, and they can request that information, not under a warrant, not notify anybody, and that's all existed under an exemption to the Privacy Act. So this is really being tidied up under this bill. They are given the explicit mandate to go and ask for that information, but they will now have to abide by the principles of the Privacy Act, and they are a lot broader and they're a lot tougher than they would operate under that exemption. The Attorney General, Chris Finlayson, also said that if the SIS or GCSB is requesting information such as tax information, highly sensitive, that would involve ministerial approval.
Jane, a new whistleblowing offence created under this legislation. Can you tell us about that?
And of course we've had the likes of Edward Snowden with disclosures and causing all sorts of problems for governments around the world. So this bill makes it very explicit that any whistleblowing activity from either of the two intelligence agencies has to go to Cheryl Gwynne, the Inspector General of Intelligence and Security. They can't go to the media, they can't go elsewhere, it has to go through her. And a new offence has been created. It carries 2 years in jail and up to a $10,000 fine, and that is for anybody with a government security clearance or access to classified information, communicating, retaining or copying it. And the Attorney General, Chris Finlayson, said that's pretty broad, so that's really to cover any kind of leaking at all from those two agencies.
Jane, sorry, we're running over on everything tonight. What sort of political support does this bill have, very quickly?
Very quickly, much broader than the 2013 legislation. Labor will support it to select committee at this stage, so it has the numbers to get that far. There will be some digging much deeper to make sure that national security definition and some of the other checks and balances are tough enough.
Our political editor, Jane Patterson, thanks so much, Jane. We appreciate it. Jane Patterson live from our parliamentary office.